Well, hi everyone, Sean Humphreys here. Welcome to this edition of the Take Charge of Change podcast. Well, of course, many of our podcasts deal with the themes of change, challenge, and transition. And to navigate the major transitions in our life, it's important that we protect our emotional, mental, and physical energy. So in today's podcast, we're going to talk about some tips or strategies to help you protect mental energy. You'll enjoy this edition of the podcast. So I just want to cover off a few tips around how we protect mental energy. And so if you think of one cohort, the successful mental energy facilitators, and the other cohort that allow their mental energy to drain off, what's the difference between those two groups? And of course, this is a really important area because our ability to access our cognition is critically important, obviously, as we navigate through our professional and personal lives and make decisions. And we're always going through transition points in our lives, and that puts additional pressure on us. And so protecting mental energy, I think, is pretty important. So the first area to think about is, don't waste a lot of time fearing the least likely outcome. How many of you sort of woken up in the middle of the night with major anxiety and worries going through your head on issues that probably at the end of the day are very, very unlikely to happen? They're kind of worst case scenarios. So try to be attentive to that kind of thinking. Are you sort of commiserating over issues that are very low probability in terms of their outcomes? And to the extent that you get drawn into those thought patterns, it can really reduce your mental energy. The other one, this is interesting, is don't get caught up in other people's melodramas. Now, that doesn't mean you're not empathetic or sympathetic, you don't express concern, help people where they're really in need of help. But there's a lot of, drama, gossip, pettiness that goes on around us. And if we're not careful, we can get drawn into that. And to the extent that we get drawn into it, it dissipates our mental energy. Here's one for you: micro distractions. Typically, it's our smartphone. Okay, so we allow smartphones or little conversations through the day, these little distractions, alerts on our computer, and if we're not careful, it can really erode our mental energy and keep us from really, accessing that part of our abilities effectively. So it's a hard one because of the addictive nature of our technologies, particularly our phones, but it is really, really important that you look for strategies to get that one sort of nailed down so it's not eroding your effectiveness. Here's one: ruminating but not taking action. There's some people who are really good. Sometimes they act too quickly and they don't do enough thinking about it, but there are some people that just think and think and think and think and never get around to actually taking action. And so one idea is try to get 80% of the project done, start taking action. As you take action, you elicit feedback from the world. That feedback helps you to improve what you're doing, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And that ties into the next point: getting it right the first time. That in some ways is ridiculous. So it's through the process of trial and error that we really learn things. And so if you're trying to be perfect to get it right the first time, which will take a lot of energy, that can be a real hard path. So again, get moving and use that movement as a way of getting better over time as you elicit feedback. The opinion of anyone that you wouldn't want to switch places with. This is more about being careful who you get feedback from, be discerning, be careful who your counselors are. It's one of those things that we sometimes aren't as attentive to as we need to be. So you just want to be careful whose voices are sort of speaking into your life. Feeling guilty about taking time for ourselves. Again, it's a silly one. I think most of us know that intellectually, but we often subconsciously work, and we believe that we can kind of work ourselves out of issues. But the people that are successful in almost every walk of life understand that the principle of oscillation needs to be applied. There's times to work really hard and to be focused mentally, and then times to disengage to give our minds a break. Another one is don't spend a lot of time justifying your place in life. Now, if you are full of passion, you have vision, you've got dreams and ideas, not everyone's going to be a champion of those ideas. In fact, you're going to be met with sort of jaded cynicism. Now, some of that cynicism will come to you because of those individuals' experiences. It's not that your ideas are invalid, it's just that they've had life experience that they're projecting onto what your project is. So I'm not saying ignore it completely, but again, just be careful. Where is it coming from? What's that person's life experience? Don't allow those cynics out there to completely derail your ideas and dreams. Senseless worrying and unchecked thought patterns. This is an interesting one, and some of these thought patterns that are negative in their orientation can be thought patterns that have been with us for years. Sometimes it takes therapy, counseling, some deep intervention to get rid of some of these things. But the most important thing is to start being reflective. Are there things that you naturally worry about, thought patterns that, if they're unchecked, really take over for you? And then if that's the case, once you identify some of those thought patterns, which may be somewhat unconscious right now, as you make them conscious, then you need to develop some strategies to deal with them. Trying to be liked by everyone, again, there can be a lot of mental energy around trying to make that happen. That's a fool's game. You're not going to be liked by everyone. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to be likable. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to develop relationships with people, respectful relationships that are caring, concern. But at the end of the day, there's always going to be people in your world that won't like you for whatever reason, and you may never be able to change that. So it's important that you don't fight that one all the time. You'll have lots of fans. If you treat people nicely, you're going to have the odd person that doesn't like you for whatever reason, and that's just the way the world works. And so the last one is that anything they don't deem to have long-term value. So people who are successful at this are always looking at their decisions in the context of the long game. So as I'm making decisions and investing mental energy in something, and I need to focus my energy and my time on it, what's the payoff? So highly successful people are focused on the long game. They're trying to figure out what the value will be down the road, and they don't allow the societal short-term get-rich-quick kind of ideas to overtake their thinking. They really want to make sure that they're investing their mental and cognitive energies into something that's going to have lasting long-term value for them. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed some of those musings. If you lead teams and you're curious about the idea of cultivating professional and personal resilience for your team so your team can navigate the natural transitions and changes that they experience personally and professionally so that they can be effective both in the work context and their personal context, we'd love to start a conversation. Reach out to us. We can talk about customized programs to help your teams be more resilient and transition ready. You take care. Be resilient.